Bostrom, Brenmo, Stark, Tao, Thune. Council President Lantry. 6 present, 1 absent, being Councilmember Thune, who is excused.
Please stand for the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda items 3 through 15 are before you for your consideration.
Is there anything for separate consideration? There's a motion for the balance by Ms. Brenmo. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmo, Stark, Tao. Council President Lantry. 6 in favor, none opposed. The consent agenda is adopted. Item number 16, RLH RR 14-7, ordering the rehabilitation or raising and removal of the structures at 1022 Minnehaha Avenue West within 15 days after the April 16, 2014 City Council public hearing. This is laid over from June 4th.
Ms. Mormont.
Council members, I heard from inspectors who were out there at 10 a.m. this morning. A lot of things are being removed from the house. The yard is a mess because of the things that are being removed from the house and organized. The inspectors are working with the owner to get that yard cleared out. And what they're asking is they want to write a summary abatement order to have it cleaned out by Monday, or they would begin the cleanup. And they're feeling pretty confident that that's going to happen, and that work is occurring, albeit at a very slow pace. And right now, the main concern that they have is getting out the material from inside of the house and getting it sanitized. That what they're seeing in the structure is that it is probably, maybe a good candidate for rehabilitation, but we just won't know until we get all of that stuff out of the house. So what I'm going to ask the council to do is to lay this over for 1 month, see if we couldn't get the house cleaned out to be able to do a better assessment of what's possible on this.
Okay, so to lay it over until July 16th.
23rd?
You want to do the 23rd instead?
I thought there was a public hearing on the 9th and then on the 23rd.
Oh, do you want a public hearing on it?
Oh, I'm sorry. The 9th would be great. I'm sorry. It's not a public hearing anymore.
No, the 23rd.
The 16th.
16th. Let's just say the month of July. We're going to hear this every single week. Okay.
There.
No. Not your fault. Mine. Okay. So July 16th? Mm-hmm. Okay. Everybody clear? Mr. Tao, does that work for you as well? Yep. Right. So moved. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmo, Stark, Tao. Council President Lantry. 6 in favor, none opposed. The resolution is laid over to July 16th. Item number 17, first reading of ordinance 14-25, amending Chapter 157 of the St. Paul Legislative Code pertaining to parking for commercial and overweight vehicles. This ordinance is laid over to June 23rd for second reading.
Okay. Good news, anybody? Ms. Brenmo.
All right, I'm going to try to do this while I look at my iPhone. So there's a really cool program we do in St. Paul called the Blooming St. Paul Awards, and it's an initiative of the Parks and Rec Department, the St. Paul Garden Club, and the Ramsey County Master Gardeners and Public Art St. Paul. And they accept nominations for gardens and then give awards for them in the winter when we really need kind of a boost. And so the nomination deadline is actually June 27th. So we need to get out and find gardens that are beautiful and nominate them. And these are, I'm going to tell you the 7 categories because there's got to be something everywhere in every part of the city that would qualify for at least one of these. There's a Business Institutional Award. There's the Kern Landscaping Residential Award for residential properties with exemplary gardens. There's the Capital Region Watershed District Clean Water Award for an exemplary landscaping project that demonstrates stormwater runoff reduction. The Eggplant Edible Garden Award. The Garden Steward Volunteer Award for exemplary volunteer group or individual enrolled in this Garden Steward program, and the Gardening Advocate Award. So if you search our website for Blooming St. Paul, there's a lot of information about that, but lots of times our nominees tend to be clustered in the same areas where people have seen awards and know to nominate, but I know that all over my ward and all around the city there are wonderful gardens that should be nominated for this by June 27th.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Stark?
Well, I just had to say something about the fact that we had 75,000 people ride trains this weekend, and Despite the crazy weather, I would say overall things were a big success out there, and reports of lots of people riding some of the new bus routes connecting down to the train, and the restaurants having a very good weekend, I think, on opening weekend along the avenue. So a lot of good news, and hopefully things will continue in that vein.
Right. Anyone else? Okay, I have one. On Friday, there is a great event called Make It Happen on East 7th Street, and it's sort of a street-long event all the way from Metropolitan State University up to Beacon Bluff, the Port Authority Business Park that's along East 7th. And from 5 to 8 p.m. on Friday, you can stroll up and down the street. There'll be great food, and all the merchants will be available so you can see what they have. And it's just a great way to sort of see all the great things that are on East 7th Street. So this coming Friday from 5 to 8, be there. Okay? And otherwise, we'll be in recess until 5:30.
You're doing this.
Okay.
In order to present live music from 11:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. on Thursday, June 19th, 2014, for a kickoff for MSRA Back to the 50s event at Mears Park.
And before we have the public hearing, a motion by Mr. Stark to amend the resolution. There was some leftover language from a previous resolution that has now been struck out, and it is version 2 on our council agenda. Everything is the same. It just, there's no wedding associated, ironically, at the Street Rod Association event. Maybe there is, but, so Mr. Stark moves to amend the resolution. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Bredmoen, Stark, Tao, Council President Lantry, 6 in favor, none opposed. The amendment is approved.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? Not that a motion to close and approve by Mr. Stark. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Bredmoen, Stark, Tao, Council President Lantry, 6 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted as amended. Item number 19, Resolution Public Hearing 14-163, approving the application of Highland District Council, represented by Kathy Caruth, Executive Director, for a sound level variance in order to present live amplified music for the Highland District Council music event from 7 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday, June 25th at 730 Cleveland Avenue South.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? Not that a motion to close and approve by Mr. Tolbert. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Bredmoen, Stark, Tao, Council President Lantry, 6 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 20, Resolution Public Hearing 14-165, approving the application of Minnesota Public Radio 40th anniversary of A Prairie Home Companion for a sound level variance in order to present outdoor music concerts from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. on Thursday, July 3rd, 2014 for setup, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Friday, July 4th, 2014, and 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday, July 5th, 2014, during music events at the main lawn of McAllister College by the Chapel and Student Center at 1600 Grand Avenue.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? Not that a motion to close and approve by Mr. Tolbert. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Bredmoen, Stark, Tao, Council President Lantry, 6 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 21, Resolution Public Hearing 14-156, approving and authorizing execution of a permit agreement between the City of St. Paul and Car2Go, NA LLC, allowing use of public right-of-way for car sharing services. Public hearing is continued from June 4th.
Mr. St. Martin.
Good evening, Council President Lantry, members of the council. As you may remember, this was before the council 2 weeks ago and it was laid over so the Transportation Committee could review the car sharing agreement with Car2Go. Unfortunately, when I went to the Transportation Committee, there was only 3 members present at the meeting, and one of the members had to recuse himself from the discussion. So there was a lot of good discussion, and I'll just say in general, folks at the meeting are supportive of the car sharing concept. It's just the devil's in the details on how it's managed and what the agreement includes. So a couple issues that were talked about. One is some folks had some concerns that commuters that live in Matt Groveland, Highland, East Side would take the car to go park at a meter all day for free, and then find another car to go and to drive back to their house. So that that's a concern, and we continue to work with Car2Go to monitor that. We have 1,600 meter spaces downtown. The agreement includes 185 vehicles, so they're not going to take up all the spaces downtown. In addition, we do have restrictions. So again, in a metered area where you have rush hour parking ban, the vehicles have to be out of there by the time the rush hour parking ban starts. Where we have overnight street sweeping ban, the vehicles have to be out of there. So again, I think that's going to help reduce that amount of vehicles parked at meters. But again, that's something we'd monitor, and then Car2Go would provide us data, so we would get reimbursed for the actual revenue that's lost by folks parking at parking meters. There's a lot of discussion about the data that Car2Go would provide us, and we've been working with them, and they've committed to work with us so we can access the data on the GPS coordinates for the locations of the Car2Go. And then in the agreement, there's also 2 surveys that will go out to Car2Go users, and the city can craft all the questions on the survey so we can get good data on use of the Car2Go, whether that replaces transit trips, etc. There were some folks in the audience that questioned that we didn't have a real robust public process, and again, they question the impact on business districts, residential permit parking areas. I wanted a more public process. In my mind, we certainly could have done that, but Car2Go is anxious to get the agreement executed. And again, it's an 18-month agreement, so to me it's a trial, so we'll get plenty of public input and process based on the actual use of the cars out in the right-of-way. At the last council meeting, there was some discussion about where the revenue is going to go. We had discussions with the Office of Financial Services. So the agreement, we're going to amend a little bit, so the revenue from the 2014 portion of the agreement we'd get in 2014. The 2015 portion we'd receive in 2015. Again, the $75 administrative fee per vehicle would go to the right-of-way fund. We have a right-of-way permit activity. So that money would go to help administer the permitting. Any money that's unspent would remain in the right-of-way fund as fund balance and could be used for other uses. The lost meter revenue would go to the parking meter general fund to make up for the reduction in parking meter revenue, which that's kind of a no-brainer in my mind. And then the $400 per vehicle to allow Car2Go vehicles to park in a residential permit parking area. Again, that would go to the right-of-way fund, and we have all sorts of needs in the right-of-way fund for pothole patching, mill and overlays. We had a lot of snow this year, so I'm sure we can make good use of that funding in the right-of-way fund. With that, that's ending my report.
Are there any questions of Mr. St. Martin? Mr. Bostrom, and then Mr. Tell.
The meters, as they're set up, basically, they're designed for turnover. And this, as I'm beginning to hear this now, somebody could park the car there at 10 o'clock and go do their business, never come back and get that car. It could be there till 4 o'clock in the afternoon or maybe even later. And all the other time when people want to come down are looking for parking places to go and shop or to go to the doctor or whatever they have to do, the parking place is tied up with this particular car. And I'm not sure how in the world we're going to get revenue if the thing was there for 6 hours. I don't think, listening to the proposal, that we're going to get 6 hours worth of revenue, because I don't know how we'd ever figure that out. And then in the meantime, we've lost perhaps several other cars that would have parked in that spot for maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, or whatever it is, plus inconveniencing those folks that came downtown and wanted to park. I mean, this is the part of it that I said before is what we're doing is turning the right-of-way over basically for private industry. And I just have got a real problem with this. I just, I don't see this coming out well for the city. I don't see it coming out well for the folks that want to come down. We hear about the parking problems that we have in the downtown area. And now, if you can just leave the car there and somebody may pick it up if it's sitting for 6 hours, I don't think that's fair to the other folks coming down that want to use the city parking on the streets.
Mr. Tao?
You said earlier that in your mind that a public process could have been had, but it didn't. And so I'm just, being the new city council, I'm just wondering, is this how we do business, where we work with private entity and then we, make deal without public process?
Councilmember Tao, I guess, I'll take full responsibility for that. Again, based on Cartago approached us, we worked with them on negotiating out the details of the agreement. In my mind, I thought that it was a good deal for the city, good deal for our residents. So, and Minneapolis had a long process where they entered an agreement with Cartago. So I thought, to me, again, it's an 18-month period. I thought it was worthwhile proceeding. Again, we could have done more on a public process.
So I talked to District Council 8, District Council 7, Capitol Heights, just to check in if they have heard anything about this, and they didn't. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's part of us not having the process. And so, I saw the contract for Minneapolis today and for St. Paul. And I just think that it's extremely important for us to have a transparent process, whether it's with Car2Go or any private entity, because that's what we're here for, to look out for the public, and to ensure that all the tough questions are asked and answers are put on the table. How long do you think a process would go from here, a public process?
Again, that would depend on how much controversy would be involved with the public process. Again, we could go out to the various district councils, which would take a lot of staff effort, staff time to do that. So, probably be a month or two before we come back to the council after a public process.
Mr. Stark?
I just want to say I really strongly agree with the general sentiment that Mr. Tao is expressing, that were we to do this all over, there should have been a more obvious and upfront public process. On the flip side of that, I think personally I've come to the point where I'm pretty comfortable with this agreement. And so it's a little bit of a catch-22 where I agree that there should have been more process, but I'm also comfortable with what's here in front of us, particularly because we're treating it as a pilot, relatively short-term agreement, as opposed to kind of speculating about how it will or might be used. What we could do is move forward, see how it's being used, because we are going to collect good data, and then do some analysis that I hope would actually go back to the Transportation Committee and say, here's how it's actually being used, here's the pros and cons, and then make a determination at that point as to whether or not we think it needs to be tweaked, changed, whether we're getting our money's worth, whether the public benefits are there. To Mr. Bostrom's point, I too am concerned about we talked about this a couple weeks ago, about the potentially perverse incentive of free parking for folks, discouraging them from using some other way of getting to downtown. But with 180 cars, we're not talking about a scale where suddenly the streets are going to be parked up and full of cars. Plus, if we're really worried about that, we should be looking at our own placards and use of the meters out there in downtown. As a city, we're part of the problem out there too. And so I guess I feel like what's in front of us is set up so that we can go back and figure out whether we like it or not. But that the preliminary proposal isn't of a scale that's going to change anything dramatically enough, either downtown or in the neighborhood commercial districts or in the permit parking districts, that it should be raising lots of red flags at this point. So I'm hopeful that we could move forward sooner rather than later with the program, and then see how it goes and reassess. I think we have the ability to do that.
Ms. Brenwell and Mr. Tao, and then Mr. Bostrom.
I want to second, I mean, it sounds like you're sort of agreeing with Mr. Tao, but also having some sense of needing to move this forward. Like, I am really excited to welcome Car2Go to St. Paul, and I think it's fortunate that they got trained in across the river, had an opportunity to work out the bugs. And I'm really convinced that our concerns about meter hogging or clustering are a little overblown, because the business and the users of the service share our interest in keeping cars moving. That's when they make money. So I don't really believe that's a problem, but I think we have opportunities to fix that. But to Councilmember Stark's point, this business has done everything that we've asked them to do in terms of the outreach of responding to questions, and perhaps there should have been a longer, more involved process. But last week, we all agreed to lay this, or 2 weeks ago, we agreed to lay this over for 2 weeks so that they could go to our Transportation Committee. And they did that. And now we're here today, and if we want to change this, I think amendments should be ready to deal with some of these details that we're talking about. But generally, it doesn't seem like there's a big problem. It's just some small details we're working on. And I feel like if we, to honor the process we've set forward to them and to let them launch at the date that they were planning to, that we should be prepared to vote to do this today and let them go. And it sounds like Mr. St. Martin recognizes that, you may have truncated the process, and you've heard that that doesn't work for us in our communities. But I also feel like last week we said 2 weeks, and now it's been 2 weeks. They've done what we've asked them to do. Our Transportation Committee seems supportive of this, and I think we should vote to support it today.
Mr. Tao.
So, I mean, I think this is also on the similar thing that I've seen. It's, we asked the same sort of question with PED just a couple of weeks ago about suddenly we see that there's available money, or suddenly we see that there's a deal that's coming through to the HRA. And so I just feel like this is this is a good opportunity for us to actually have those discussions about process and transparency, and so that we are doing what the voter asked us to do, which is to ensure that we go through all the fine details. I just think that based on principle, we have an opportunity here to, what I believe, to make things right. But that's, and it's a reoccurring question that we've asked other department. I just want to make that out there.
Mr. Bostrom.
Thank you. I don't support it. I think that we're allowing them to do business in the public right-of-way, and I think that's a huge step. I don't have University Avenue in my area. However, we lost about 90% of the parking spots on University Avenue. You can park there perhaps with one of these things, or 2 or 3 or 4 of them, and leave them there all day. And the business people out there are going to be in serious trouble. The whole way that this happened really bothers me, the using the public right-of-way for private business, and the little bit of input that we've really had on that. And I don't think I heard Mr. St. Martin say that the committee took any action on this because they didn't have a quorum. Is that correct?
That is
okay,
correct.
So the Transportation Committee did not take any action on this at all. So I really feel that for something of this size and this significance, that this really needs a much closer look at it. I'm not comfortable with this at all.
And I think one of the things that we ought to keep in mind is this is an 18-month contract, and so I would guess if some of these, if our deepest, darkest fears came to fruition, and somebody called up Car2Go and said, listen, you're hogging all the meters on the corner of 4th and Wabasha, my guess is they'll start moving them around, because I think the idea is they want to be have a longer-term relationship with the city of St. Paul. So if there's ever a time when they're going to be really compliant and when we can figure out what things we need to change in the contract going forward, the other thing that I want us to be cognizant of is, Car2Go called me, a month ago or whatever, and said, can I come in and talk to you and explain all of this? And there was an opportunity for a long time to ask a bunch of questions. I realize we just got the Minneapolis comparison today, which I took a look at, and the reason why Minneapolis gets more per meter is because they have longer meter hours, and they enforce on Sundays, which we don't. We're capturing the revenue from our meters because we have shorter hours. I don't know if the amount is the same that they charge per hour that St. Paul is, but there's a reason for the discrepancy. I know they even get an event bump. We don't, because we don't charge event parking. I think the idea was we didn't want to lose money on the deal, and one of the things that is going to be happening, people who are in a car to go are going to be down here. It's just they're just in somebody else's car. So it's yes, it's their business, but the idea is it's still guests to our city. So it's just those I think are important distinctions as well. So are there any other questions for Mr. St. Martin? Then we will at this time have a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? Is there anyone who wants to be heard in support of this item?
Council Chair, members of the Council, my name is Teresa Kane, and in full disclosure, I work for Metro Transit in the multimodal arm commuter programs that promotes getting around our region in a way without driving alone in the car. But I am actually here as a person who, I don't reside in St. Paul, but I live exactly across the street at Smith and Annapolis. I have the Route 62, half a block from my home, and I would love to take it to the Green Line, which goes directly to my office. I mean, like across the street. For example, today I would have done that, but I had a doctor's appointment in Phelan Boulevard. So I drove 35 miles on my car today so that I could get to work, get to my doctor's appointment, and then I went home thinking, well, I'll take the bus downtown for this meeting, but when I checked the schedule, I was 3 minutes late, and then there wasn't another bus for half an hour. Now, I have people to talk to about bus service in my area, but that's not the issue here. The issue is I could have taken a car to go. And if I leave this meeting and I have a half an hour to wait for another bus, which is an 8-minute ride for me, I would have taken a car to go if it was available. And I'm sure that many of my neighbors and friends feel very much the same way. It would be significant to our mission to get people to use transit and be able to supplement those fixed transit things like the Green Line, which is not moving, with a one-way trip to and from their home. I respect the opinion that some people may take the car to go and drive downtown, but I suspect that more people will not do that, and this will be, in fact, an enhancement to what we have right now, the beginnings of an extremely multimodal system, and a really exciting time for public transportation in the region. And so I wholeheartedly support Car2Go and car sharing and bike sharing and transit and all the ways that we can connect them together. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kane, we need you to sign in, though, too. I'm sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Damian Goebel. I'm representing St. Paul Smart Trips and I'm also a resident of the Lexham neighborhood of St. Paul. At St. Paul Smart Trips, our mission is to improve access and mobility for everyone traveling in and around St. Paul, and we truly believe that car sharing does that. Car sharing has been proven time and time again to reduce the need for car ownership. Some studies suggest as much as by 32 cars per single car share vehicle. And that car share members time and time again are shown to increase their rates of biking, walking, and transit use after becoming members. We truly believe that car sharing will increase St. Paul's safety, health, and livability. The more options that are available like car sharing will do that. Having said that, recent data coming from other markets that Car2Go exists in currently indicates that their point-to-point model actually reduces transit ridership among their members, which is troubling to us. We feel that the goal of car sharing is really to supplement biking, walking, and transit trips. Now, having said that, we're really encouraged by the way that city staff has handled it in their contract by having a stipulation of program evaluation, especially through the use of vehicle usage and survey data. We strongly encourage city staff to require questions in the user survey about changes in car ownership and usage rates, as well as changes in transit, biking, and walking usage. We really feel like it's an opportunity to understand how car sharing impacts not just drive-alone travel in the city, but the transportation network as a whole. So we do support the proposed permit agreement for car share parking with the understanding that city staff will use this as a learning opportunity going forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Council President Lantry, council members, my name is Josh Johnson. I am the location manager for Car2Go in Minneapolis. Thank you again for allowing me the time to speak here today. I would like to address a couple of the questions that were brought up by the council members, as well as some of the other points of kind of contention that have come up over the past couple weeks. With regard to the metered parking in particular downtown, the idea is that, as Council President Lantry suggested, we want to keep the cars moving as well. It doesn't do us any good to keep the cars in one place for too long. What we've seen in Minneapolis is that the cars do cycle pretty quickly at those meters. We just did some data analysis that showed that in May in particular, a car average idle time at a meter downtown was about 4 hours. So they are continually moving, continually cycling. With the amount of members we have currently in Minneapolis and what we anticipate we'll see in St. Paul is that we do have enough members to support those cars to continue to move constantly throughout the day and not sit for too long. The idea that it's possible that they could sit for a longer period of time, but that's where we send our fleet team out and we relocate that vehicle to a higher utilization area because, as I said, it does us no good to let those cars sit for too long. We need to keep them cycling. With regard to the actual meter, the foregone revenue from the meter, that's where the idea that we do the end of the year reconciliation. So we have data that shows us exactly where that car is. We can match that up with whether or not it's at a metered space and how long it's idled there for. And then at the end of the year, we would give that data to the city in reconciliation saying, okay, this is possibly what we should have paid, this is what we did pay, and the difference either way. So we do have the data available, and we would share that with the city to allow for reconciliation at the end of the year for all of those metered spaces in St. Paul to ensure that we are paying an accurate amount for the idle time that those cars are sitting there. With regard to the quarterly report, we do provide a full quarterly report to the city of Minneapolis currently, and we have committed to doing the same for St. Paul, whether it's with Mr. St. Martin or someone else from Public Works. We would do the same thing where we analyze the amount of trips on a daily basis, the amount of trips to and from a zip code, members by zip code, all of the pertinent data that would be needed to evaluate the success of this program here in St. Paul and across the Twin Cities as a whole as we continue to grow and continue to build our membership base and utilization. With our expansion to St. Paul, we're hoping to be an integral piece of the transportation puzzle that is growing here in Greater MSP. I'm sure you guys know the rapid growth that is projected by 2040, 893,000 new residents for Greater MSP. There's going to be a much greater need for alternative modes of transportation. Obviously, we can't support that with private car ownership, and that's where we hope to be a piece of that puzzle. We hope that we're able to, in conjunction with the newly launched Green Line, with bus service, with other car sharing options, with biking and walking, that we can get people where they need to go in alternative to using their private car, that we can ultimately help to reduce the amount of private vehicles on the road and help people get over the anxiety of letting go of their private car. Because I'm sure, as you all would think, that the idea of depending on somebody else to get you around town, if you're not able to do it via bicycle, via walking, it's it can definitely provide some anxiety. And, that's where we hope to be a piece of the puzzle to help reduce that, to help, in conjunction, we can get you to the Green Line to get you downtown, and then you can take the Green Line back down here and take a car to go to your doctor's appointment and then home, or take the bus line, whatever it may be. In conjunction with all that's available, we can provide a complete transportation puzzle for greater MSP, as Car2Go Twin Cities, Metro Transit, Nice Ride continue to expand. After surveying our members, we found 39% of our trips are made regularly in conjunction with Metro Transit, whether it's light rail or bus service, and that 78% of our members have purchased some sort of Metro Transit pass. So you can see it is the data that we've seen from Minneapolis in particular has shown that people do use us in conjunction with public transportation. That allows them, by being able to depend on, because unfortunately public transportation is not perfect, by utilizing other alternative means of transportation to and from, filling in gaps, whether it's our car, whether it's Car2Go, whether it's Nice Ride, whether it's walking, that we can allow people the freedom to either let go of their car or, consider actually selling it. And, we hope to be a piece of that puzzle. As far as the public outreach is concerned, I sent, the emails to the District Council's Collaborative and Transit for Livable Communities back on January 9th, trying to get the discussion started regarding our expansion to St. Paul. I followed up with phone calls, unfortunately did not hear anything back. The District Council's Collaborative in particular has 8 districts in St. Paul that are members that, had we been able to connect, we would have been able to get out in front of and do the outreach and do the education portion that some feel that we may have been lacking, of which is included the Union Park Council, where Ann White raised the concerns at the Transportation Committee last night. The idea that we also reached out to the council members in conjunction with some of the other business districts, the Grand Avenue Business District in particular, about a month before the first council meeting to discuss the proposal and our service and how it works. They gave us the response that they were too busy with Grand Old Day and get back to us in the middle of June. I followed up again on June 11th and still haven't heard anything back. So we've done our part. We've followed the process. We've tried to get out in front of this and be able to provide that information to those stakeholders who are ultimately going to be instrumental in our success. Whether or not they're members, whether or not they support us, we need both those members and non-members, fans and not fans, to ultimately accept us to be able to continue to move forward and have success here in St. Paul and Minneapolis together. In advance of the actual start of operations, we would have time as well to continue that outreach. So we would do our part to get in front of those district councils in advance of cars being on the road and being available for use, so that we could tell them, okay, this is coming, this is what we do, this is how it works. Ask me any questions you have so that I can allay some of your concerns and ensure that the public process is followed and that you guys are aware of what's happening. And then we would continue to address that as cars are operational and as they are out on the road, that we would continue to field those questions and address any concerns that businesses, residents, members, non-members, whoever it may be, city government, we would address all of those concerns and take care of any issues that do arise. So I assure you we would definitely, we are committed to doing that and making sure that this thing does become widely accepted in both currently in Minneapolis and hopefully soon in St. Paul. And finally, this agreement has been 6 months in the works, and we've been working very hard with our partners, with the City of St. Paul, Mr. St. Martin, the Assistant City Engineer for the Traffic and Lighting Division, Ann Hunt, the Environmental Policy Director for the Mayor, and Mike Klobuchar, Civil Engineer for the City of St. Paul Public Works Department. Together with them, I think we've spent quite a bit of time going back and forth, fine-tuning this agreement, ensuring that we're doing what's right for the city and the city is doing what's right for its residents, that this is the ultimate, the best deal for both the city and the residents of the city, and that moving forward, we will continue to do as Council President Lantry suggested, that this is the opportunity to, as we go through it, identify areas of strengths and weaknesses and where we can readjust and reevaluate and do better. And that's where the idea of quarterly reporting comes into play, where we're able to meet and discuss what's happening, how it's going, trends, opportunities, threats, and how to continue to move forward and make this successful for all members, public and members and non-members. So I hope you're able to come to an agreement to move forward with this, with our proposed agreement with the city. We are very much excited to begin the process. We have cars ready to go. We were very excited about the idea of operating on a July timeline for a launch, and we're still very much excited to stay on that timeline. So I thank you for your time, and thank you for this process.
We have just about a minute left. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in support of this item? Not that a motion to close the public hearing by Ms. Brenmo, and roll call.
Tolbert, Foster, Brenmo, Stark, Tao. Council President Lantry, 6 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed.
Mr. Bostrom.
I've just got a question for Mr. St. Martin. I'm still not quite clear as to how this parking arrangement works. If somebody drives one of their cars and they park it at a meter in downtown St. Paul, do they go and buy a ticket for an hour or 2 hours, or do they just leave the car and we assume through their accounting process will get reimbursed?
Councilmember Bostrom, you're correct. A car-to-go vehicle, so let's say I took a car-to-go vehicle, came downtown at 10 a.m., I could park at a meter. I would not have to pay. I'd just leave the car there and would not have to pay, and then that car would sit there until somebody else takes that car for another trip. The way the agreement is set up is we're estimating that lost revenue for one vehicle for a year is $500. That's the estimate. But again, what we're going to do is reconcile every 6 months. Where Car2Go would provide us all the data of all the locations of those vehicles, and that data should show that that car, for example, was parked at a meter. Let's say it was there for 4 hours and it was a $2 an hour meter. That would be $8 of revenue that would come to the city for that use of that parking space for that 4-hour time period.
We don't have any way of confirming that the way I understand this. There's no way for us as a city to know that that car was there for 4 hours.
Correct. We'd have to depend on their data.
Madam President, I have never seen anything that we've done that's been so short on details that does this in the public right of way. And the rush to get into this just really amazes me. So I think there may be some value to this, but at this moment I don't support it.
I won't look to you for a motion for approval.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Tao.
I have this unknown about the parking issue at the Selby and Snelling development, and then along the University Avenue. I mean, those are important corridor in my ward, and not just in downtown alone. But I feel that, we don't have a quorum at the Transportation Committee. This is a process that others in the community could say that this is a backdoor deal. There's many different type of perception. I just can't, in my right mind, support this. I like Car2Go. I think it's a great idea. It's a great concept, but the way we're getting to it, I think it's wrong. I can't support it. When we don't have a transparent process, we don't have a conversation about what kind of partners we want to have. We don't have a conversation about conflict of interest when in our contract. And so, a constituent could say, can city employee work for Car2Go? Can they, who's benefiting? I think these are the sort of things that we have a responsibility to slow things down. And of course, we don't have a perfect system where maybe Car2Go did try to reach out to our district council, but when I hear from my district council is that they didn't hear anything. So who's right, who's wrong? I think these questions need to be raised. How do we partner with a a private entity, if they truly believe in their products, they truly believe in the passion, the work that they do, then I think they would understand that we need to go through a process where everybody's involved, included, especially those people in my ward. I cannot support this at this time. I would amend a layover to at least with recommendation from Mr. St. Martin, if a month is enough.
He said 2 months.
I think you'd have to do 2 months if you wanted to go to all the district councils, considering I think most of them only meet monthly. I mean, I'm just thinking to get through all 17 district councils in 1 month is probably not going to happen. I don't know if you can do all 17 in 2 months. But, so I just wanted you to think about that. If you want to make a motion to lay it over, let's think about what that timeline ought to be.
Sure.
And so that should be.
I'm up for discussion. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so you're thinking about having a layover so we can go to the various district
Right.
councils? Okay. Mr. Bostrom and then Mr. Stark.
I think the district council's a good idea too, but also the business associations out there, because there are many of those that are really going to be impacted potentially by this.
Mr. Stark?
I said earlier that I really support the basic sentiment of doing a better community process around things like this, and I hold to that. My sense, though, in this case is it's not, frankly, it's not Cardigo's responsibility to have done better than they did. It would be the city's responsibility to ask them to do the correct process. Unfortunately, the city in this case, the representatives who they were working with, did not do that. I do not blame Cardigo for that. And unfortunately, at this point in time, because of your concerns, potentially the city, represented by all of us, is now sending a mixed message. And that's going to happen sometimes. The administration is going to come on a different side or approach to an issue than we will, of course. And it's not our responsibility to accept the process or lack of process that's been put forward to this point. So I'm very sensitive to the concern. I'm personally still comfortable with what's before us to move forward. But I do appreciate the concern about process.
Just clarity question. So Public Work is supposed to notify our district council of this contract, or?
I don't think there's there's no protocol, frankly, for this sort of thing. It doesn't come up often enough that we have a protocol about how that should work. But my sense is that overall decisions were made by some combination of the administration and Public Works, that this is how they were going to bring it forward. They could have done that differently.
Mr. Tolbert?
I have a question for Mr. St. Martin. Sorry to make you keep going back into it.
Right.
Just a question on the contract. If, say, for example, some of these potential problems come about, what is our ability, or what would be our penalty if we decided to terminate the contract, or if there are certain specific instances where they really are having problems, do we have the ability to do towing or do those types, to take adverse action basically against, if bad behavior, I don't suspect that would happen, but if that did happen under this contract, what would be the potential tools that we would have to either terminate the contract or take adverse action?
Councilmember Tolbert, in the agreement, there's a couple sections. One section says the city may temporarily or permanently restrict any part of the service area at any time. So that gives us some authority in case we have some areas where we have issues. And it also says the city will evaluate the success of contractor services in residential permit parking areas and any potential negative impact thereon after 1 year of operation. Contractor may be required to abate any such negative impact at its own expense. As far as the termination of agreement, I'd have to find that section.
But so, I mean, one of the things I suspect, based on just hearing the reading, granted I'm not reading it, but if there were specific issues, say, for example, around Selby Dale, or Selby Snelling, or, Ford Parkway in Cleveland, we'd be able to limit their access to park cars in those specific areas based on the contract, and then we could resolve those little issues as this goes forward.
Correct. And again, based on our discussions with Car2Go, and then we also checked in with City of Minneapolis, and City of Minneapolis has been very happy with Car2Go's response time and dealing with any issues that come up.
Mr. Tao?
Mr. Seymour, how difficult is it to add in the clause of in the contract for any condition to enforce conflict of interest or non-discrimination and equal pay to women? I mean, these are sort of the values that we have in this city, and I just feel like when there's no public process, then we essentially eliminate some of those important conversations of strengthening our city.
Excuse me, Councilmember Tao, the agreement, we're pretty much using boilerplate language that we use in all city agreements. Again, this is a permit agreement where we're giving Car2Go permission to use the public right-of-way with certain restrictions. So again, we don't have any boilerplate language that would cover, what their hiring practices are. There's other citywide policies, practices about conflict of interest for city employees. So that's all covered elsewhere. It doesn't really have to be covered in the agreement.
Maybe just a couple more things. I think one of the things that we have to think about is, and I'm sort of getting stuck on this, is right now a car comes down and parks at a meter, and they pay. Now a car that has something on it that says Car2Go will come down on a meter and pay for it. So a car is going to park at our meter. And there's no incentive for it to just sit there all day because that's not how they make their money. The other thing is, I think we can always do a better job at public process. Despite the fact that we try a million times, it can always be better. And so I'm thinking ahead, because I think theoretically you'd have to lay it over for a couple months, and we'd have to send Mr. St. Martin and Mr. Johnson out on a road show, all the district councils and all the business associations. And my thinking is, what are they going to do at those different venues? And basically what it is, it's an education effort, because I never knew what Car2Go was until this came before us. So basically what they're doing is communicating about a new way of getting around. And so, it's not like we're not going to write the contract, change the contract from all this other input. That's not, we can barely write a letter from the 7 of us. Can you imagine getting a contract written from all these different organizations with various interests? So I think there's actually an opportunity to do both. Now, if you're against the concept because you don't want to give up our roads to a private entity, I get that. That's a whole different animal than the public process. But to suggest that once this happens, the public process of education has to end is just not what's going to happen. Because if I were Car2Go, I would go to all those places because they're my market. And so, sort of to that point about how do you educate the public and get out there and hear those concerns from the community, I don't think that passing this stops that. And so maybe there's an opportunity, again, if you're philosophically opposed to it, that's one thing. But if it's about educating the community and getting out there, I bet we could get that commitment from Mr. Johnson that they will continue to do that, because that's how they're going to market themselves. So my deal is, a car is there today, and tomorrow a car is going to be there, and it's going to say Car2Go. And I have to say, when we were at League of Cities in Seattle, last November, I thought it was such a cool thing. It's like, it's just one more option. As we were taking the streetcar, it's like, and if you needed to get somewhere, you could pop off and get on a Car2Go. It just is another option for folks. So I'm going to be supportive of it, because I don't think that passing this stops the conversation. And I think it would be different if we were doing a 5-year contract. We're not. So I think there's an opportunity as we go forward to do a lot of education without stopping that process and the concerns that you have about that communication. The thing about using our public roads for a private entity, that's a different issue. Mr. Bostrom.
And that is, it's a
Right.
private, for-profit organization using the public right-of-way. And to me, I'm not convinced that we are all that well protected in that, because the citizens of this town and the people that are paying the right-of-way charges and stuff, they got a big investment in this. These folks don't have any investment in it. They went out and bought some cars, they park them, and we get, based on their information, we get reimbursed to a certain degree. And I'm not convinced of that. And to move that far forward with having that little information as to how in the world we're ever going to get compensated for this stuff, I think it's way premature.
Mr. Stark?
Just to this point about the private use of the public right-of-way, we actually do that in a number of other instances. I mean, we allow food trucks to park at our meters and plug the meter. They're paying for the spaces while they're there. The idea here is the same. Essentially, they're going to pay for the time that they're using, and then we'll reconcile at the end. I am sensitive to this. We have to rely on their data. That is true. But I think anecdotally we will know if cars are sitting all day in spots. People are going to pay attention to that. Our parking enforcement people will know. They're circulating in downtown all the time. And so I'm not worried about some massive abuse of that data or system. We also let contractors block the public right-of-way for construction all the time. It's a private use of the public right-of-way that we do all the time.
Madam Chair, if I may respond to that. But they pay for the permits to do that. You know, they just don't go and, okay, I want to park here. No, they've got to get a permit from Public Works. If you're going to park a dumpster on the street or anything like that, that costs you to do that. If you're going to hood the meters in downtown St. Paul, that's going to cost you to do that. This doesn't cost them anything to do that. They get reimbursed supposedly by the people that are using the cars.
No.
Well,
Actually, I think they pay us up front, and then if it's less, we get $500 a meter.
Up front.
Up front.
Right, but some of these meters can generate that much probably in a month.
No, we know this. Mr. St. Martin did the math, right? He's a math guy.
Yes.
I know it.
Let's hear about your math. Show your homework, Mr. St. Martin.
Again, Council President Lantry, Councilmember Bostrom, again, we ran through some calculations on what we thought the lost revenue would be, and again, we estimated $500 per vehicle per meter, so they're paying for that use. Again, we will reconcile that based on the actual use, based on the data they provide us. In addition, they're paying us $75 a vehicle for administrative fee for our cost to manage the system, and they're paying us $400 per vehicle per year for the right to park in a residential permit parking area. And we have all sorts of cases where private entities are using the public right-of-way. We have courtesy benches in the right-of-way where the U.S. bench pays a fee for using the right-of-way. We have CBS outdoor bus shelters where they pay part of their revenue to us for use of the right-of-way. So we do have cases where private entities are using the public right-of-way and paying the city a certain amount of money for that right.
Madam Chair, the $500 annual for the parking, that's probably, if you figure that out, that's about $1.50 a day per meter. That's not an awful lot compared to what those meters can generate.
Mr. Bostrom, that assumes that they're only ever going to be parked at the meters, which is not the case. The majority of the cars at any given time would not be at metered spots. They'd be out in the community. And if they all were clustered in downtown, these guys would actually move them out so that they weren't clustered. That's part of their business model. They don't want them to cluster.
I guess, may I ask Josh Johnson, based on their experience in Minneapolis, what percentage of the vehicles typically park at the meters and down. So they have 350 vehicles in Minneapolis. Again, they have probably about twice as many parking meters as we have.
I know.
But I think they probably provide some numbers of what their experience is in Minneapolis on percentage of vehicles that park at meters.
So what we're finding, obviously, it's up and down based on the day, based on whether it's a weekday or a weekend. What we're seeing is, depending on the time of the day, it doesn't get to be more than, I would say, like I said, up and down, an average of 100 to 150 vehicles throughout the day, and those again are cycling. So it's not necessarily all 150 at one time at a meter, but over the course of a day, there would be 100 to 150 vehicles parked at a metered space during, most likely a weekday on average.
Okay. Mr. Tao, I think you were thinking about how long you wanted to ask.
I want to put forward an amendment to lay over this to July 23rd and get this done so they can launch in August.
Okay, so your motion is to lay the matter over until July 23rd. Okay. Is there any discussion on the layover?
Well, I thought that the comment was made that it was going to take at least 2 months to get to all the district councils. Like, what are we going to accomplish in a month? Like, what will we be satisfied with?
It was given the South Beach Business Area Association, Union Park, District Council 8, District Council 7, at least folks that I know that haven't heard about this, an opportunity to have a discussion.
So, but to Council President Lantry's point, could they have that discussion and do the education efforts that you're talking about once this is passed?
So, I mean, I'm not sure if this is an education piece or not, right? Like, I think it's up to the Transportation Committee and the folks that are involved, impacted to figure out if this is an education piece, or do they want to modify the contract or have a proposal for us.
Okay, so Mr. Tao's motion is to lay this matter over until July 23rd. Mr. Tolbert?
I'll just say I'm comfortable with the contract as it is from what I can tell. I think there are ways for us to figure out some of these potential issues out, and I'd be comfortable voting for it today. However, I understand Mr. Tao's position, and I'd be fine giving you the, I think out of courtesy, I think to lay it over to July 23rd. So I'm going to vote to lay it over. But my personal feeling is I'm fine with the contract the way it is today.
Okay, so the motion, Mr. Stark?
I just want to say I would support the motion if I thought that a month from now we were likely to have to change things, or that we would get feedback that would then lead us to adjust. And I don't think that will happen. I think a month from now we'll be with the same proposal before us, and maybe some people will be more comfortable with it, maybe not. But I don't think the outcome would change much given the flexibility that is built into the contract, so I'm not going to support the layover.
Well, and I think we ought to, we laid this matter over 2 weeks ago. And I think there has to be some responsibility for those folks who want to have information. When I think about, remember the conversation we had with Mr. Thune about the changing of the zoning stuff? And it's like, well, they didn't hear about it. Well, they're hearing about it now, so somebody needs to pick up the telephone and call. I mean, there are avenues to get this information as well. And so so those folks who had concerns, who they wrote us their concerns, somebody can't just say, well, I hope they call me. I mean, there is a little bit of a responsibility on the part of folks who have questions to be more proactive, to ask those questions, because they seem very willing to sort of, wherever two or more are gathered, to come and talk about Car2Go. So I'm just thinking that there has to be some responsibility for our folks who desperately want information to make that connection. It would be different if I had heard, you know what, I'm sorry, I called him 3 times, he never returned my call. That doesn't seem to be the case. And I think, as I said, I'm comfortable with it, and I don't know what's going to change in a month. And I think that education piece, that communication piece, I want to see continue going forward, because I think in the next month, I don't know how many places you can hit because of our district council schedule. Some of them don't even meet in the summer, or we'll take a month off. So I don't know what it gets us is my concern. So I'm not going to support the layover, but it's not because I don't understand the perspective. I just think it can continue anyway.
And I just do want to add to that I feel like we can't keep moving the finish line. Like we agreed 2 weeks ago that 2 weeks was time to meet the committee and to have some of these questions attended to. And so I'm not going to support the amendment. I understand, I believe in community process too, but it sounds like this has been going on since January, and they haven't really been able to drum up so much as a squeak. So I'm not going to support the amendment to lay it over, recognizing that I understand your point.
Okay, so the motion is to lay the matter over until July 23rd. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmoen,
No.
No.
Stark,
Sorry.
No.
Tao. Council President Lantry.
No.
3 in favor, 3 opposed, the motion fails.
Mr. Chow, is it, okay. I'm sorry, did you have anything else? Or I know it's sort of confusing when you have to vote in the positive for something negative or vice versa. Okay, so now is there a motion to approve by Mr. Stark? Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom,
No.
Brenmoen, Stark, Tao.
No.
Council President Lantry. 4 in favor, 2 opposed, those being council members Bostrom and Tao. The resolution is adopted. Item number 22, Resolution Public Hearing 14-140. Final order to consider approval of the reconstruction of the Kellogg Boulevard bridges at Market Street and St. Peter Street.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? If not, then a motion to close and approve by Mr. Stark. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmoen, Stark, Tao. Council President Lantry. 6 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 23, Resolution Public Hearing 14-155, amending the city's 2014 capital improvement and debt budgets to reflect the issuance of the Series 2014 General Obligation Capital Improvement Budget, Special Assessment Street Improvement, and Library Bonds to finance the refunding of its Series 2014 Library, 2004 Library, 2005 CIB, 2006 CIB, 2004 SIB, 2005 SIB, 2006 SIB, and 2007 SIB bonds, as well as 2014 CIB, RSVP, and library renovations project.
Well, I think that's all of them. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? Not that a motion to close and approve by Ms. Brenmoen. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmoen, Stark, Tao. Council President Lantry. 6 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 24, Resolution Public Hearing 14-167, approving the petition of the Chicago Great Western Office Condominium Association to vacate part of an alley adjacent to its property at 343-381 Kellogg Boulevard East.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? Not a motion to close and approve by Mr. Stark. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmoen, Stark. Council President Lantry. 5 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 25, Resolution Public Hearing 14-161, approving the petition of the St. Paul Academy to vacate parts of Wheeler Street, Juneau Avenue, and the adjacent alley abutting SPA-owned property at 1712 Randolph Avenue.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? Not a motion to close and approve by Mr. Tolbert. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmoen, Stark. Council President Lantry. 5 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 26, Resolution Public Hearing 14-160, approving the petition of Wilson Ridge Apartments, LLC, to vacate Wakefield Avenue adjacent to their property at 1276 Wilson Avenue.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? Not that a motion to close and approve by Mr. Bostrom. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmoen, Stark. Council President Lantry. 5 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 27, Resolution Public Hearing 14-166, authorizing CenturyLink Parkland diversion and license for fiber optic line.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? Not a motion closed and approved by Mr. Tolbert. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmo, and Stark. Council President Lantry, 5 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed, and the resolution is adopted. Item number 28, Resolution Public Hearing 14-168, approving the establishment of a tax increment financing district and approving a tax increment plan for the Custom House Post Office redevelopment project.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? Not a motion closed and approved by Ms. Brenmo. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmo, and Stark. Council President Lantry, 5 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed, and the resolution is adopted.
And we see that our folks are here for that project, and we wish them the best of luck. This is the beginning of a really cool project, so congratulations. I know it seems sort of anticlimactic, but congratulations.
Item number 29, Resolution Public Hearing 14-169, amending the tax increment financing plan for Spruce Tree Metz Bakery Tax Increment Financing District.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this item? Not a motion closed and approved by Mr. Stark. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmo, and Stark. Council President Lantry, 5 in favor, none opposed. The public hearing is closed, and the resolution is adopted.
And now we will do a public hearing on our legislative items that require separate consideration. Ms. Mormon, do you have any?
I have one item. It is for 537 Rice Street, which is number 55 on the agenda.
Do you want to read that then, Ms. Moore?
Item number 55, RLHTA 14-262, ratifying the appealed special tax assessment for real estate project number J1408A, assessment number 148524 at 537 Rice Street.
Council President, council members, this is a snow shoveling cleanup. I conducted 3 legislative hearings on this matter, and all of them were no-show. At the last hearing, I did view the video, and we went through the staff report. After doing so, I recommend approval. Because there was no attendance, I asked that the video be retained, and you can look at it now for yourselves as well. The cost was actually pretty negligible. It was $40 with a service charge of $160, bringing the total to $200. And there were basically 2 weeks that passed between the issuance of the orders and the actual snow removal. If we could look at that video, that would be great.
537 Rice Street.
Okay.
Work
He
order
doesn't have
calls
volume
for
on this,
police
but we're
salt and
looking
sand
at
to
it.
public sidewalks. .537 Rice Street. Completion video for 537 Rice Street. Work order asks for us to salt and sand the public sidewalks. This completes the work order for 537 Rice Street.
That video, making a video record of snow is really hard. What I do have up is a photograph right now of what it looked like when the crew arrived, and you can see that there's a trail there where a sidewalk would be, and it wasn't shoveled out earlier, so what we're looking at now is several inches of compacted snow that's turned into ice. This is also on a corner, and you can see that the corner isn't punched out very well. I think it did get punched out in the process in the time before our crew showed up, but the main thing is all those inches of ice that needed to be handled.
So your recommendation is to
approve the assessment.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to this recommendation? Oh, I'm sorry. I can't. Come on up. I'm sorry. I can't. Sorry, I can't see over that chair. Come on. You can join us at the microphone.
Yes, my name is Shamsuddin Hassan.
Can we get you to move over just a minute? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, my name is Shamsuddin Hassan. I'm the owner of 537 Rice Street. As you can see on the video, we did not even open. It's early morning. We were looking for, the snowblower, car, trucks. And when we come to blow the snow, they already, shoveled it before us. So it was early morning. It was also freezing. We did as much as we can. You can see all the way street. Nobody, shoveled better than us. So it was really freezing. We couldn't do more than that. So we did put the salt on it, and we did as much as we can. Other than that, we don't know who put some stuff in there. And we did not receive any letter saying that remove those stuff. So I'm just asking to forgive us for this time because, we are new for that place and we did as much as we can.
Okay, thank you, sir. Because I think the date of the orders were January 27th. The work wasn't done until February 12th. We didn't get out there until many days later.
Is this your address?
16 days later.
Okay. The orders were mailed to both the occupant at the address on Rice Street and to this gentleman in Mounds View, which he indicates that's his address.
Mr. Stark?
Willing to defer to Mr. Tao's judgment on this, but just kind of wanted to make a general statement, which is that this is a really common problem on some of our arterial streets, and it is hard. I mean, you have to be really vigilant about clearing the snow in a timely way, or else it does end up freezing, and then it's too late, really, to do it well. But I think we all need to kind of set that expectation. As homeowners, a bunch of us have to do that as well. And it really limits people's ability to get around the city in the winter if we aren't really vigilant about clearing the snow before it turns to ice. So I just want to say that as a general comment.
Clear question. I wasn't clear. Did the shop owner, did he say he received a notification?
He indicated that he did not receive a notification. The department records show that they sent the notification to the occupant at this address and also to this gentleman at his address in Mounds View. The practice is to send them first class, and they do make a note for the record for me when I review it, whether or not there was returned mail in this case, so that we have a sense of what was the delivery. There was no returned mail in this situation, so we can't...
So the owner, I'm assuming Mr. Sorry, I guess name
Hassan.
Mr. Hassan. So one was sent to his home address.
Yes.
Then one was sent to his business, and his name is on the business and the home. Is that?
It was sent to occupant at the business and with his name to his address in Mounds View.
Okay. And he said he didn't receive either one?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Can I close the hearing?
Yeah, I think we already did.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmoen, Stark, Tao. Council President Lantry, 6 in favor, none opposed. Public hearing is closed.
Mr. Tao.
Yeah, I feel that area, it's the Rice Street area is one of the areas that I get the most complaint about disabled constituents not being able to go to from work and where they need to go. And so I'm going to go in an agreement with the recommendation.
Right. All I could think of is, can you imagine having a stroller on that bumpy surface? It'd be tough. So Mr. Tao moves approval. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmoen, Stark, Tao. Council President Lantry, 6 in favor, none opposed. The resolution is adopted.
Is there anything? We will now have a public hearing on the balance of our legislative hearing items. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on any of the balance of the items we have not called separately? This is a public hearing. Not that a motion to close and approve by Ms. Brenmoen. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmoen, Stark, Tao. Council President Lantry, 6 in favor, none opposed. Public hearing is closed, and the consent agenda is adopted as amended.
And Ms. Brenmoen moves adjournment. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bostrom, Brenmoen, Stark, Tao. Council President Lantry, 6 in favor, none opposed. The meeting is adjourned.